Jane, who is that from? What is it about? What does he say?
It is from Miss Bingley. She says,
My dear friend, if you are not so compassionate as to dine today with me, I shall be in danger of falling into a complete decline. My brother and Mr. Darcy are away, visiting the officers.
visiting the officers!
A military regiment has just arrived in Meryton. Very exciting.
I do hope we will see Captain Carter today. He's divinely handsome.
From all that I can collect by your manner of talking, you must be the silliest girl in the country. I have suspected it for some time, but now I am convinced.
Sir, can I have the carriage?
No, my dear. You had better go on horseback, because it seems likely to rain, and then you must stay the night.
That would be a good scheme if you were sure they would not offer to send her home.
Oh, but the gentleman will have Mr. Bingley's carriage to go to Meryton.
I had much rather go in the coach.
But, my dear, your father cannot spare the horses, I am sure. They are wanted in the farm, Mr. Bennet, are not they?
Poor Jane was therefore obliged to go on horseback.
Have a lovely time, my dear. We will hope for rain.
Her hopes were answered. My sister had not been gone long before it rained. Hard.
This was a lucky idea of mine indeed.
Oh, my dearest Lizzie, I find myself very unwell this morning, which I suppose
Is to be imputed to my getting wet through yesterday. My kind friends will not hear of my returning home till I am better.
Well, my dear, if your daughter should have a dangerous fit of illness, if she should die, it would be a comfort to know that it was all in pursuit of Mr. Bingley and under your orders.
Nonsense. People do not die of little trifling colds. As long as she stays there, it is all very well.
I am sure she is very ill, or she would have come home. I must see her.
Lizzie, the horses are at the farm.
Then I will walk to Netherfield.
Walk? In 3 miles of mud? How can you think of such a thing? You will not be fit to be seen when you get there.
I shall be very fit to see Jane, which is all I want.
Where is Miss Elizabeth Bennet going in such haste?
Haven't you heard? Her sister lies abed with the fever at Netherfield. I've no doubt she goes to visit. She is an excellent walker.
If only that could get her a husband. Her petticoats and stockings will be ruined.
£2 sixpence.
Miss Elizabeth, you are welcome to Netherfield.
How kind of you to attend your dear sister and to come all this way in such dirt.
There's nothing, I assure you. How is Jane?
Miss Bennet slept ill last night, I'm afraid. She is very feverish and not well enough to leave her room.
Then, with your permission, I will go to her.
Really, she looked almost wild. So untidy, so blousy. And her petticoat, 6 inches deep in mud, I am absolutely certain.
Your picture may be very exact, Caroline, but all this was lost on me. I thought Miss Elizabeth looked remarkably well when she came into the room.
I'm afraid, Mr. Darcy, that this adventure has rather affected your admiration of her fine eyes.
Not at all. They were brightened by the exercise.
I've been with Jane all afternoon. She still looks so ill and feverish, but to stay longer? I fear I must not trespass on your hospitality any further.
Oh, I'm so sorry you can't stay. Shall I call the carriage?
You must leave, I know, but I have felt so much more recovered with you here. I don't know how it is. Pray you forgive me.
Jane, hush, you must lie quietly.
Oh dear, it quite torments me to see you in such distress, dear friend. Perhaps you had better stay, Miss Eliza, for the present at least, and when you have made your sister more comfortable, I do hope you will join us in the drawing-room.
Would you play at cards, Miss Elizabeth?
No, thank you. I shall read if you don't mind.
Miss Eliza Bennet despises cards. She's a great reader and has no pleasure in anything else.
I deserve neither such praise nor such censure. I am not a great reader, and I have pleasure in many things.
In nursing your sister, I'm sure you have pleasure, and I hope it will soon be increased by seeing her quite well.
Mr. Darcy, is Miss Darcy grown since spring? Will she be as tall as I am?
Yes, she is now about Miss Bennet's height, or rather taller.
Ah, how I long to see her again. Such countenance, such manners, and so extremely accomplished for her age.
It is amazing to me how young ladies can all be so very accomplished.
All young ladies accomplished? My dear Charles, what do you mean?
Oh, they all paint tables, cover screens, and net purses. I am sure I never hear a young lady spoken of for the first time without being informed that she is very accomplished.
I cannot boast of knowing more than half a dozen in the whole range of my acquaintance that are really accomplished.
Nor I am sure.
Then you must comprehend a great deal in your idea of an accomplished woman.
I do.
Oh, certainly. A woman must have a thorough knowledge of music, singing, drawing, dancing, all the modern languages, to deserve the word.
And to this she must add something more substantial to the improvement of her mind by extensive reading.
I am no longer surprised at your knowing only 6 accomplished women. I rather wonder now at your knowing any.
By the by, Charles, are you really serious in meditating a dance at Netherfield? I am much mistaken if there are not some among us now to whom a ball would be rather a punishment than a pleasure.
If you mean Darcy, he may go to bed if he chooses, but as for the ball, it is quite a settled thing.
I should like balls infinitely better if they were carried on in a different manner. It would surely be more rational if conversation instead of dancing made the order of the day.
Much more rational, my dear Caroline, but it would not be near so much like a ball.
You write uncommonly fast.
You're mistaken, I write rather slowly.
I am afraid you do not like your pen. Let me mend it for you.
Thank you. But I always mend my own.
How can you contrive to write so even? Miss Eliza Bennet, let me persuade you to follow my example and take a turn about the room. I assure you it is very refreshing after sitting so long in one attitude.
Thank you.
Mr. Darcy, will you join us?
I can imagine only 2 motives for you choosing to walk together, and with either of those motives, my joining you would interfere.
What can he mean? I am dying to know his meaning. Do you understand him?
No, but depend upon it, he means to be severe on us, and our surest way of disappointing him will be to ask nothing about it.
Mr. Darcy, explain.
Miss Bingley is apparently incapable of disappointing Mr. Darcy in anything.
I'll explain gladly. You either choose this method of passing the evening because you have secret affairs to discuss, or because you are conscious that your figures will appear the greatest advantage in walking. If the first, I should be completely in your way. If the second, I can admire you much better as I sit here.
Oh, shocking! How shall we punish him for such a speech?
Nothing so easy if you have but the inclination. Tease him, laugh at him. Intimate as you are, you must know how it is to be done.
But upon my honour I do not. 'Tis calmness of temper and presence of mind. And as to laughter, we will not expose ourselves, if you please, by attempting to laugh without a subject.
Mr. Darcy is not to be laughed at. That is an uncommon advantage, and uncommon I hope it will continue, for it would be great loss to me to have many such acquaintance. I dearly love a laugh.
Miss Bingley has given me credit for more than can be. The wisest and best of men may be rendered ridiculous by a person whose first object in life is a joke.
I hope I never ridicule what is wise or good. Follies and nonsense do divert me, I own, and I laugh at them whenever I can, but these, I suppose, are precisely what you are without.
And perhaps that is not possible for anyone. But it has been a study of my life to avoid those weaknesses which often expose a strong understanding to ridicule.
Such as vanity and pride?
Yes, vanity is a weakness indeed, but pride, where there is real superiority of mind, pride will always be under good regulation.
Your examination of Mr. Darcy is over, I presume. And pray, what is the result?
I am perfectly convinced by it that Mr. Darcy has no defect. He owns it himself.
No, I have made no such pretension. I have faults enough. My temper would perhaps be called resentful. My good opinion, once lost, is lost forever.
That is a failing indeed. Implacable resentment is a shade on a character. But you have chosen your fault well. I really cannot laugh at it. You are safe from me.
There is, I believe, in every disposition a tendency to some particular evil which not even the best education can overcome.
And your defect is a propensity to hate everybody.
And yours is wilfully to misunderstand them.
Do let us have a little music.
I think it's time to write to Mamma. Dearest Mamma, as we have been here for 4 days and Jane is completely recovered,
I don't believe it.
I beg you that the carriage may be sent.
Oh, she must stay at Netherfield till the following Tuesday, which will exactly finish her week.
Jane is determined to go.
I am sure your father's horses are wanted in the field.
They are wanted in the field much oftener than I can get them.
We will take Miss Bingley's carriage then.
I can't think why you are back so soon.
I hope, my dear, that you have ordered a good dinner today, because I have reason to expect an addition to our family party.
What do you mean, my dear? I know of nobody coming.
The person of whom I speak is a gentleman and a stranger.
A gentleman and a stranger? It is Mr. Bingley, I am sure.
It is not Mr. Bingley. It is a person whom I have never saw in the whole course of my life. About a month ago I received this letter. It is from my cousin, Mr. Collins, who, when I am dead, may turn you all out of this house as soon as he pleases.
Oh, pray do not talk of that odious man, or the entail. It is the hardest thing in the world that your estate must be willed away from your own children.
It is certainly a most iniquitous affair, but Mr. Collins' letter suggests some peacemaking propensities. I propose, Mrs. Bennet, that we receive him with kindness.
I had heard much of your daughter's beauty, Mrs. Bennet, but in this instance fame has fallen short of the truth. I have no doubt of your seeing them all in due time well disposed of in marriage.
How peculiar.
Be silent, Kitty. Upstairs now. You are very kind, sir, and I wish with all my heart it may prove so, for else they will be destitute enough. Things are settled so oddly.
You allude perhaps to the entail of this estate.
Ah, sir, I do indeed.
As a clergyman, Mrs. Bennet, and one who has been so fortunate as to be distinguished by the patronage of the Honourable Lady Catherine de Bourgh, a widow of Sir Lewis de Bourgh, I feel it my duty to promote and establish the blessing of peace with all families within the reach of my influence. And while it is my earnest endeavour to demean myself with grateful respect towards her ladyship, she is far from objecting to an occasional absence, provided some other clergyman is engaged to do the duty of the day. Therefore, I have come, hoping that the circumstance of my being in line to inherit the Longbourn estate will be kindly overlooked on your side, and not lead you to reject my proffered olive branch.
To be sure, Mr. Collins.
I am sensible, madam, of the hardship to my fair cousins, but I assure the young ladies I come prepared to admire them.
Ah!
I cannot be otherwise concerned, Mrs. Bennet, at being the means of injuring your amiable daughters. I have a tidy living, a prosperous congregation, and a most gracious patroness. Dare I hope, ma'am, that a mistress for my parsonage might be found here at Longbourn. Miss Jane Bennet, perhaps?
My dear Mr. Collins, I must mention, I feel it is incumbent upon me to hint, Jane is likely to be very soon engaged. Now, as to my second daughter, I cannot positively answer, but...
Miss Elizabeth. It's a fine day for a stroll amongst the greenery.
How I long to see that handsome Captain Carter. Do you not think he is the divinest creature that ever wore a uniform, Kitty?
Excepting Mr. Denny.
What a lovely place is Meryton. Such fine straight roads, almost as straight as those on the estate of my esteemed patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
You seem most fortunate in her acquaintance, sir.
Oh, she is everything that is good and wise. She is reckoned proud by many people, but I have never seen anything but affability in her. I have been invited many times to dine at Rosings, her estate, you know, encompassing more than 1,200 acres. And just last week she paid a visit to my humble parsonage, where she... the condescension! Suggested the addition of some shelves in a closet upstairs.
She sounds a most attentive neighbour.
Miss Elizabeth, may I venture to suggest that it is like your perception to say so?
Look, there's Colonel Forster.
Who is that he has with him? Colonel Forster! Colonel, here!
Lydia, please.
Miss Bennet, I must make you known to them, Wickham. Mr. Wickham, Miss Bennet, and this is Miss Elizabeth. Elizabeth Bennet.
How is it we have never seen you in Meryton before?
I have just come to town, having accepted a commission in the corps.
Miss Bennet! My, what a lucky thing! I was just on my way to Longbourn.
What can be the meaning of it?
It is impossible to imagine.
It is impossible not to wish to know.
Jane, come see. Such a delicious bonnet.
Have you been able to see much of Meryton, Mr. Wickham?
Yes, indeed. And everything I see pleases me. My friend Denny first tempted me here with the prospect of good society, which I own is necessary to me. Distraction is vital to one whose hopes have been. Forgive me, but have you known that gentleman long?
Mr. Darcy? About a month. He is a man of very large property in Derbyshire, I understand.
True. And you could not have met with anyone who could give you more certain information on that head than myself. I have been connected with his family in a most particular way since my childhood. Are you much acquainted with him?
Oh, as much as I ever wished to be. I have just spent 4 days in the same house with Mr. Darcy and think him very disagreeable.
I have no right to give my opinion. I have known him too long and too well to be a fair judge. Though I believe your opinion of Mr. Darcy in general would astonish. But perhaps you would not express it quite so strongly elsewhere.
Upon my word, I say no more here than I would in any house in the neighbourhood. Everyone is disgusted with his pride. I hope your plan in favour of the corps will not be affected by his being here.
Oh, no. It is not for me to be driven away by Mr. Darcy.
Mr. Wickham, do swear you will come to my Aunt Phillips tomorrow. It will be such fun. We are going to play whist and drink punch and be very merry together.
I shall be delighted. And no, Miss Elizabeth, I have no reason for avoiding Mr. Darcy but what I might proclaim to all the world. A sense of very great ill usage and most painful regrets at his being what he is.
Delicacy prevents farther inquiry. But what an agreeable man! Do you not think so? Such pleasing address. I shall hope to learn more at my Aunt Phillips. Are you enjoying the party, Mr. Wickham?
I am, and I thank you for your kind inquiry.
You may thank me more substantially by telling me some gallant tale of military endeavour.
I regret to say that I have none. To speak the truth, Miss Elizabeth, the military life was not what I was intended for. The church ought to have been my profession.
Indeed? And what came between you?
Well, perhaps I should not say.
But I so wish to know.
It concerns the gentleman we were speaking of yesterday.
Mr. Darcy?
His father, the late Mr. Darcy,
was my godfather, one of the best men that ever breathed, and excessively attached to me. My father had given up everything to be of use to the old Mr. Darcy, and devoted all his time to the care of the Pemberley estate. In gratitude to him, and because of his affection for me, the old Mr. Darcy bequeathed me upon his death the best church living in his gift. But when the living fell, it was given elsewhere.
Good heavens! But how could his will be disregarded?
There was just such an informality in the terms of the bequest as to give me no hope from the law. A man of honour could not have doubted the intention, but Mr. Darcy chose to doubt it.
What reason did he give?
That it was a conditional recommendation, that I had forfeited all claim to it by extravagance, imprudence, in short, anything or nothing.
How abominable! What can have been his motive?
I have a warm, unguarded temper, and I may have sometimes spoken my opinion of him too freely. I have often also thought that had the late Mr. Darcy liked me less, his son might have borne with me better.
He deserves to be publicly disgraced.
Sometime or other, he will be. But it shall not be by me. Till I can forget his father, I can never defy or expose him.
Wickham, come here, my boy. We need a fourth for whist.
I am shocked. Shocked and aggrieved. Such a truly good-hearted man to be treated in such a manner. I wonder how Mr. Darcy will receive Mr. Wickham at the Netherfield ball.
They have both been deceived, I dare say, in one way or another.
But how could Mr. Wickham invent such a history? Names, facts, everything. Besides, there was truth in his looks.
Mr. Darcy cannot be so very bad. No man of common decency could have behaved in such a manner. Can Mr. Bingley be so mistaken in his character? Oh, how terrible for him. One does not know what to think.
I beg your pardon. One knows exactly what to think.
Oh, Lizzie, the worst luck. Mr. Wickham won't be here tonight.
What? Was he not invited?
I heard from Captain Carter that Mr. Wickham felt it better that he should stay away to avoid a certain gentleman.
Is Wickham not here? Oh, Lord! I'd set my mind to flirt with him all night.
My every prospect for happiness is now completely destroyed.
Oh, Lizzie!
It is true. I've only dancing with my very odd cousin Mr. Collins to look forward to. There he is.
He does not seem so very odd.
You have not spoken with him yet.
Miss Bennet, I hope you will give me the pleasure of the next dance.
Oh, of course. Gracious, what have I done?
I dare say you will find him a very agreeable partner.
Heaven forbid, that would be the greatest misfortune of all, to find a man agreeable whom one is determined to hate.
Lizzie, don't be such a simpleton. Don't allow your fancy for Mr. Wickham to make you appear unpleasant to a man 10 times his consequence.
It is a very fine ball, is it not?
Indeed.
It is your turn to say something now, Mr. Darcy. I talked about the dance, and you ought to make some kind of remark on the size of the room or the number of couples.
Whatever you wish me to say, I shall.
Very well. That reply will do for the present. Perhaps by and by I may observe that private balls are much pleasanter than public ones. But now we may be silent.
Do you talk by rule, then, while you are dancing?
Sometimes. One must speak a little, you know. It would look odd to be entirely silent for half an hour together, and yet for the advantage of some, conversation ought to be so arranged that they may have the trouble of saying as little as possible.
Are you consulting your own feelings in this case, or do you imagine that you are gratifying mine?
Both. For I have seen a great similarity in the turn of our minds. We are each an unsocial, taciturn disposition, unwilling to speak unless we expect to say something that will amaze the whole room.
That is no very striking resemblance to your own character, I am sure. How near it may be to mine, I cannot pretend to say. You think it a faithful portrait, undoubtedly.
I must not decide on my own performance. When you met us in Meryton the other day, we had just been forming a new acquaintance.
Mr. Wickham is blessed with such happy manners as may ensure his making friends. Whether he may be equally capable of retaining them is less certain.
He has been so unlucky as to lose your friendship, and in a manner which he is likely to suffer from all his life.
I have been most gratified, indeed, sir. Such superior dancing is not often seen. I must hope to have this pleasure often repeated, especially when a certain desirable event shall take place. What congratulations will then flow in. Ah, Miss Lydia, but you are not dancing.
I'm sorry. Sir William's interruption has made me forget what we were talking of.
I do not think we were speaking at all. Sir William could not have interrupted two people who had less to say for themselves. I remember hearing you once say, Mr. Darcy, that your resentment, once aroused, was unappeasable. You are very cautious, I suppose, as to its being created?
I am.
And never allow yourself to be blinded by prejudice?
I hope not.
It is particularly incumbent on those who never change their opinion to be secure of judging properly at first.
May I ask to what these questions tend?
Merely to the illustration of your character. I'm trying to make it out.
And what is your success?
I do not get on at all.
I could wish, Miss Bennet, that you were to not sketch my character at the present moment, as there is reason to fear that the performance would reflect no credit to either.
But if I do not take your likeness now, I may never have another opportunity.
I would by no means suspend any pleasure of yours.
So, Miss Eliza, I hear you are quite delighted with George Wickham. I find that the young man forgot to tell you that he was the son of old Wickham, the late Mr. Darcy's steward. Let me tell you, however, as a friend, not to give implicit confidence to all his assertions. I do not know the particulars, but I am sure that Mr. Darcy is not in the least to blame. I pity you, Miss Eliza, for this discovery of your favourite's guilt, but really, considering his descent, one could not expect much better.
His guilt and his descent appear by your account to be the same, for I have heard you accuse him of nothing more than being the son of Mr. Darcy's steward, and of that I can assure you he informed me himself.
Excuse my interference, it was kindly meant.
I have found out by a singular accident that there is now in the room a near relation of my patroness. I must pay my respects to him.
You mean Mr. Darcy, but he will consider it a great impertinence for you to introduce yourself.
My dear Miss Elizabeth, I have the highest opinion of your excellent judgment in all matters within the scope of your understanding, but the clergy are not bound by established forms of ceremony. Mr. Darcy!
It is absolutely, positively a settled thing. I am in daily expectation of Jane's receiving Mr. Bingley's proposal.
I am very happy for her.
Yes, such a charming young man, and so rich. And it is such a comfort to think how fond...
Mamma, please speak a little lower.
How fond his sister is of Jane. I'm certain she must desire the match as much as I possibly could.
Mamma, everyone can hear you.
Hush, Lizzie. And such a promising thing for my younger daughters. As Jane's marrying so greatly must throw them in the way of other rich men.
I am persuaded that Mr. Darcy can hear you quite clearly.
What is Mr. Darcy to me, pray, that I should be afraid of him?
For heaven's sake, madam, speak lower. What advantage can it be to you to offend Mr. Darcy?
That's quite nice. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, let us have some singing.
Oh, yes, by all means.
Miss Mary. Wonderful.
Very well, child. You have delighted us long enough.
If I was so fortunate as to be able to sing, I should have great pleasure, I am sure, in obliging the company with an air, for I consider music to be perfectly compatible with the profession of a clergyman. Of course, we cannot be justified in devoting too much of our time to music, for there are certainly other things to be attended to, such as testifying the utmost respect towards anybody connected with his patron's family.
My relatives are determined to expose themselves. What a wretched night.
Miss Elizabeth!
Oh, no. Pray don't tell him I'm here.
Miss Elizabeth! Miss Elizabeth?
Mr. Collins, do come into the drawing room and give us your opinion of Fordyce's sermons.
Lizzie, where have you been? The carriage is called. This has been a most excellent evening. Allowing for the preparation of settlements, new carriages, and wedding clothes, Jane will undoubtedly be settled at Netherfield in the course of 3 months. Oh, my dearest Jane, I knew she could not be born so beautiful for nothing.
Well. It seems Miss Jane Bennet may snare a rich husband. A pretty face can buy a fortune. Apparently, Miss Bennet is in spirits.
Let us hope she is not in a fool's paradise as well.
Indeed.